right, if you can confirm for me, it looks like it's about ready to go. If you could confirm for me, Trish, can you see my screen?
I sure can, yep.
Okay, so you see Lifecycle Services?
I do.
Great, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then. So Trish kind of set things up for high expectations. Let's make sure that I can answer all your questions on LCS. So thank you for the introduction. As you know, Trish had mentioned, I'm in the R&D organization, and part of my role is primarily focusing on the TAP and beta programs. So any of the new features or functionality that comes out of the R&D organization. And with that, Lifecycle Services is a very big piece of that. Primarily why Lifecycle Services is so big on that is because we are continuously making changes to LCS. And so you'll hear me refer to Lifecycle Services as LCS quite a bit. We're going to start with just some of the basics on Lifecycle Services, on how to get started, where to go to learn about more information and to share within your organization. If there are items that you forgot and you want to go back and look at later on as well. And then we're going to walk through all the different tools and everything that we have available in Lifecycle Services, just so that way you guys are well aware of the functionality and features that we have. So Lifecycle Services is about, I would say we're getting close to our second birthday here. June is when it was really started. June of 2013 is when it really got started, and we really started to introduce it out into the community. And the purpose of Lifecycle Services is to help with your application lifecycle management. So we think of the ALM process, the application lifecycle management, from taking you to the point on what is Dynamics AX about? Do I want to buy Dynamics AX? Is it going to be right for my company? All the way through the design phase, that now that you have purchased AX, how do you design your solution to be best for your business? All the way through developing the customizations that might be required to make sure that Dynamics AX will fit the needs of your business, then to going live and deploying environments in Azure, so that way you have access to them and you have access to your live environments, all the way through the operate phase, which would be really all about maintaining your environment. So if you needed to find a hot fix, or if you had a question about how does something work, then you have all of that capability in the operate phase as well too. So that's when we think of Lifecycle Services. Our goals are to make it predictable, automated, and proactive. The predictable piece of Lifecycle Services, this also comes in the way where we're seeing a lot of companies and organizations building up a global template of a Dynamics AX deployment that they want to take out and re-implement to multiple different organizations and also multiple different countries. So Lifecycle Services also helps you with that predictability, so that way you do have that predictable aspect where you could pretty much build a deployment package, a deployment plan, a deployment methodology, and you could take that and use that for each of your different global rollouts. So first thing is first, how do you get access to Lifecycle Services? One is that you must be a customer that is current on your enhancement plan. So the Business Ready Enhancement Plan is part of your support plan that you purchase. When you purchase the Dynamics AX licenses or the Dynamics product, you purchase the license keys, and then you typically pay 16% of that license key or that license list price as your enhancement plan. As long as you are current on that enhancement plan, you will have access to Lifecycle Services. All partners, all ISVs also have access to Lifecycle Services as well. Before we start with the sign-in and looking at some of the projects, let's look at some of the collateral that's available. So this has been out there, it's been maybe about 6 months now or so, but we've changed our home screen in order to just provide you guys with more self-service functionality on what Lifecycle Services is all about. So we talked about the different phases of an application lifecycle management, the definition phase. We look at who are the primary personas within the define phase. We also looked at develop, who are our primary developers, who are the people that we are targeting lifecycle services for, the operate phase, and then we have the cloud deployments. So then we have the opportunity for you to deploy AX in Azure using Lifecycle Services to do this. Now within each of these phases, you can go here to learn more information, and this more information will also be about white papers, and it will take you to YouTube videos as well that you can also see. So if we continue to scroll down on the home page of Lifecycle Services, just a little bit more collateral as far as how are people adopting Lifecycle Services, what are they saying about LCS, and how has it really helped transform their business. Now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. I know it might take a little bit of time to refresh here, but at the bottom of the page is where you can click on some links, which are YouTube videos, which are just little reminder nuggets for you to go back to later on and to get a good understanding about LCS. We also have a user guide. The user guide and the brochure are available for you to download. They do take each service and walk through each service in I would say a little bit more of a high-level overview to give you that recurring and understanding as far as what each tool does. We have a complete white paper on AX and Azure that you can download so you can understand, if you did want to deploy AX and Azure, all of the different topologies that we have available. And then for customers, we did create some e-learning. So we are going to cover the majority of the topics today in our session, but you can always click here and go for e-learning courses or for e-learning for partners or for customers. Okay, let's scroll all the way back up to the top here, and then we're going to talk about logging in. So the URL to remember is lcs.dynamics.com. That's what you can use to log in to Lifecycle Services. Now there's this nice big green button here. This is the green button you guys are going to use when you log in to Lifecycle Services. The credentials that you're going to use to log in are going to be the same credentials that you use when you access Customer Source or Partner Source. So you need to be able to make sure you can log in to either of those two portals. And once you can log into those two portals, you'll also be able to log in to Lifecycle Services as well. Now, because I'm a Microsoft employee and I'm on the corporate network, I'm going to use my credentials. So my login is just slightly different. So bear with me just a second while it goes ahead and logs me in. And now we are at our homepage of Lifecycle Services with the updated overview of what we can see from our new look and feel of Lifecycle Services. The first thing that you notice is that you can search on any issues using issue search, and you do not have to be in a Lifecycle Services project. So if you had a question about fixed asset depreciation, you could type that in right here, and you would be brought right up to issue search. And we're going to hold on that thought just a little bit because we're going to talk about what issue search is all about, in just a little bit. You can click on this Learn tile, and that's going to take you to TechNet. So all of our help material is located currently on TechNet. That's where the LCS help is about as well. We have a blog. Our blog is what we use to provide you with the release notes, so you have a good understanding as far as what is the updated or the next time when we are going to have downtime, as well as what are we going to be deploying. And this blog takes you out to TechNet as well, too. And then we have downloadable tools. The downloadable tools is the area where you can go to find all of those great tools that we have developed and released after the product was released. So if you think back to anyone that's been around for AX 2012, when AX 2012 first came out, we did not have a ability for you to import data when it first came out. And so we then developed the Data Import and Export Framework tool. This is where you go to download that tool. There's several other tools out here as well too. The Test Data Transfer tool, the Security Development tool, all great tools available for you to use for your AX 2012 deployment. This is the page where you're now going to go to download all of those tools. Now I'm going to click back up here on Lifecycle Services so that way it takes me back to my home page of LCS now that I'm logged in. Then we're going to skip about the projects because we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So let's move over here to the announcements. This is where you could see when we are doing any planned maintenance and also what you could see for release notes. So you know what we are going to be coming out with that's new for that release. What we are working on doing is we're working to move our cadence on our planned release and our planned maintenance to the weekends. We still understand that there's a lot of 24/7 organizations out there, and even by moving it on the weekend, we're still having interruptions to businesses by having our downtime. You'll notice our last update that we had was April 18th, and we were down for 8 hours. What we are striving for and working towards is a almost zero downtime. So that is something that is definitely on our radar that we are working on. We're at about 18 hours right now. A lot of it also does depend on how large the deployments are and what we're doing, but we're working to get towards a near zero downtime. If you take a look at the methodology concept, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit when you go to create a new project, but I want you to be aware here that this is where you can go to manage your own methodology and where you can create a brand new methodology. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. If you wanted to add additional users to your organization, you click on Organization Users tile, and this is where you can add organization users. And then if we add any features or functionality to Lifecycle Services and you want to be part of the beta, this is where you will go and where you will be directed to turn on the preview feature management. And I always provide you a step-by-step guidance on how to use this tile. Let's start with the first step by creating a brand new project. So I'm going to call this, go up here. It's a little bit slow this morning for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. I was pretty snappy a little earlier, but let's go up here and we'll create a brand new project. Maybe I sat and talked too long on our home page here. We'll call this one Fastpath Demo. Okay, so the next thing to note is that the product name. Today, you can only choose Dynamics AX 2012. What we are actively working on is one of our near-term goals is to turn on Lifecycle Services for the CRM product as well, too. Now, not all of the tools are going to be there exactly as they work for AX like they work with CRM because a lot of it is just a different architecture, but we are working to make Lifecycle Services available for CRM. I don't necessarily have an ETA for you yet. I would think that just at a high level, you can expect to hear something within the next 6 months for sure, that CRM will be available for LCS as well. But because it's only available for AX 2012, and that's important to remember if you're an AX 2009 customer or even an AX 4.0 customer, just remember that Lifecycle Services really focuses on 2012, and we do not have any plans to backport. So it will only be available for 2012 or for our next version of AX. You could choose the particular product version, and it is important to make sure that you do choose the right version because the tools are optimized for the version, and so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Then you can also select the industry that you're in. I'm going to go ahead and select the manufacturing industry, and then you can choose a methodology. Now, you see here I have a ton of methodologies that I could choose from, and this is because I'm within the Microsoft organization, so you're able to see all of the Microsoft methodologies that we have, even ones that we have in test. But I'm going to choose the methodology of Surestep Agile, and I'm going to go ahead and choose Create. Now, as we go through this demo, because I have some projects that are in different phases and in different stages, I'm going to be going to a couple of those different projects. So I'm going to be hopping a little bit back and forth so that way you guys could see and understand the functionality of what we have here. The first option that you have available is that you can link your Lifecycle Services project up to a SharePoint, an O365 SharePoint configuration. So you can do that by clicking on the configuration tool here, and all you need to do is enter your O365 SharePoint team that you, or your SharePoint team site that you have created, and then now you can access your SharePoint site through Lifecycle Services. We also have in the next big block what we call our methodology. Now, we selected the Surestep Add Job methodology. This methodology, and you guys, as you saw a little earlier, can create your own methodology. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the creative ways that even us as Microsoft, how we're using this methodology concept. But the purpose and the primary purpose of the methodology is really to help you with the tools to deploy your application lifecycle management in the application lifecycle management realm to deploy Dynamics AX. So to get to the very beginning aspect of creating your project plan, looking at the risks of your project plan, looking at the scope of your project plan, all the way through your different sprints. So what does sprint 1 look like? How long is your sprint going to be? Is it going to be a 2-week sprint? And here's all of the different tasks that are templates on what you need in order to be able to accomplish your sprint to get to the final phase, which is your release. And so when you look at your release, to make sure you have your proper user training, you have your acceptance training, and here we provide you with resources, which are several different templates for you in order to complete this task within this step. So we have available for you Surestep Add Job. If you guys have been used to or gone through a deployment and are well aware of the Surestep methodology, that's a lot of what you see out here in the Surestep Add Job methodology. Now, there are several methodologies that you can choose from. One of the ways that we actually are using this as a creative tool is we are using this as a training tool for our next version of the product. And so when you guys see Dynamics AX7 come out, you're going to see the same concept where it's steps and it's tasks within each step linked to resources that might be a document or it could be a video that allow you the readiness and the training material that you need to complete that task within that step. So we released for you a methodology. You, as you just heard how we have created a creative way of using the methodology, you can also use a methodology your own. You can create your own methodology by creating your own steps, naming them whatever you wish, and creating your own task within each step, and then adding your own resources as well. We talked about, we're going to come back to the environment, so we'll go on to another project for that. So hold that thought for just a second. But we talked about the SharePoint Online Library as well, how you can connect to your team SharePoint site using SharePoint Online. Once you have connected to your SharePoint Online Library, this is where you will be able to see all of the documents then that are linked to that team SharePoint site. So here you will have visibility. Obviously, when you go into your SharePoint Online site, you have all the visibility there as well too, but you have it here in front of you using this, this tile. Then if we continue to scroll over, now we see a lot of the tools that are available for LCS. And each of these tools can really be used in their own special way. Remember, these tools are meant to help you through that application lifecycle management. So one of the tools that is a tool that you would typically use right away is determining what is your license size. So what do you care about from a license perspective? What are the roles? What are the duties? how do you need to be thinking about what licenses you need to be purchasing for your AX deployment? So this tool can be used in several different phases. Obviously, this would be a great tool to use in the pre-sales phase to have a good understanding on how much is this AX thing really going to cost me here. So the first thing that when you come into this tool you notice is that you get asked the number of employees. So my organization is going to have 500 employees, and then I'm going to have a number of vendors. So let's say I have 75 vendors. Now, some information was automatically populated for me, such as my version and my industry. And this information came through because I selected that when I created my project. It's important, as I said, to make sure that you are selecting the right version, and that's because the licensing did change slightly from R2 to R3. So you do want to make sure that from a license sizing estimator view, that you actually are estimating this to be on the right version. Now, because I selected the manufacturing industry, by default, we went and said, okay, I think these are the common departments that you're going to use for your manufacturing industry. You can come back and say, sure, this is by default, but I'm actually not going to be doing payroll, and I'm not going to be doing HR, and I'm not going to be doing customer service. Everything else looks pretty appropriate. So when I choose my next button, this will come into the tool where I can start to add my roles. So let's look at my department for the warehouse role. I'm going to come in and start to add my roles. I have several roles out of the box. Now, these are roles that are out of the box for AX that we ship that are by default what our security roles are within the product as well too. So let's say I'm going to have warehouse manager role is the role I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to have 3 warehouse managers, and they are going to be individual users, so I'm going to add that. Then I'm going to come out here and look at my other roles. I'm going to have 4 quality control clerks, so I'm going to add them. Now it's starting to build out for me and tell me the particular CAL level that I need to purchase. And that's an enterprise CAL for my warehouse manager or functional CALs for my quality control clerk. But maybe I don't really know what does Microsoft think a quality control clerk does. So let's go ahead and just click on the quality control clerk. Now I'm starting to see all of the out-of-box duties that we assign to the quality control clerk. I can also see per each duty the CAL from a license perspective that's required. Now I could come out here to these duties or this role and I can make changes. I could say that for this duty, and I'm just going to make some kind of silly connotations here, but I'm going to say that they never have to maintain master palette, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm also going to, just for the sake of visual and seeing how this works, I'm going to remove all of these functional tasks, and I'm going to say my quality control clerk only does these items, and I'm going to save this. Now, from a license sizing perspective, this quality control clerk is now a task user, and that's what I need to purchase. Now, what would be nice that does not exist out of the box with Microsoft is if how you manage this quality control clerk role, how that would then feed into Dynamics AX. So that way your license sizing estimator and how you manage this role could be fed into AX. Today, this is only a report. So the results of the license sizing estimator is really a report that tells you what type of licenses do you need to go out and should you be purchasing. So it's only from a, maybe a self-audit type of a self-audit report, just that you can run to say, okay, well, what kind of licensing should I go purchase? There is an auditing report within the product of AX that after you do get to using the product, you can run that report as well too to see, what are you using as far as CALs. And I know with the Fastpath solution as well too that they provide you a whole host and a whole series of opportunities on what you can look at from a user perspective. you guys obviously are all Fastpath customers and lovers of the product, so I don't need to be talking to you about those capabilities, but I want to make sure you know what the capabilities are within LCS that we have. And that's the first one, just really looking up the license sizing estimator. Now I'm going to click back up here on the Fastpath demo because that's going to take me back to my project. Now, one of the challenging areas, and I'm sorry, I know that there's a little bit of a delay here and a lag from what I'm showing on my screen from what you guys see in the go-to meeting, but one of the challenging areas is I do, every time I come back to the project, always have to scroll over here to the right in order to be able to see all the other tools that are available. So I apologize for the delay on that. Hopefully it looks like from my perspective that you guys are caught up, that you're able to see everything. So let's go take a look at some of the other tools that we have. That's License Sizing Estimator. Another very popular and powerful tool is the Business Process Modeler tool. So let's click on this tool and go into these details. The Business Process Modeler tool allows you the capability to, one, learn about how Dynamics AX and the business processes that are mapped to APQC, the American Productivity and Quality Center, how the business processes defined out of APQC can be executed in Dynamics AX. So I'm going to show you how that works. The Business Process Modeler tool is also good when you start thinking about your fit gap. So now you start to understand how Dynamics AX works, but what are those gaps that you have to those business processes for your deployment? So now you can start building your gap list. Then you can also use the Business Process Modeler as a training tool, as a way to say, I have now gone out and I have modeled all of my gaps, so now because of that, I can use this as a tool for my new hires to understand how does Dynamics AX work. So the BPM, Business Process Modeler, the BPM tool is extremely powerful, can be used in multiple phases. So let's start talking through how you actually use it. What you guys are going to see are your global libraries. Now, global libraries are libraries that are released by Microsoft. Everyone can see the same global libraries. A corporate library is a library that is tied to your organization. So notice you can see I have several silly, corporate libraries out here. Todd Test, Testra, Steve's library. So these are all libraries that our teams, our engineers within Microsoft have been creating. Now, a corporate library is tied to, if I click up here in the upper right corner of the screen and I'm clicking on my name, it is tied to my organization right here. So I am logged in and tied to Microsoft Corporation. And this Microsoft Corporation project was created under my account. Now, if you as a customer create your project, you are going to be tied to your organization. And you will only see corporate libraries that you promote within your organization. If your partner created a Lifecycle Service project and they invited you into their project, you will be able to see all of the partners' corporate libraries. So it's this whole big hierarchy. And if I were to go and invite you guys into this project that I created, you guys would also be able to see all my corporate libraries here because you're tied to the Microsoft Corporation project. So the global library, corporate library, and my library are all about what type of project are you assigned to. So let's start, we're really going to focus on the global library, and then we're also going to be focusing on the My Library. So on the global library, what I'm going to do is I just clicked on this APQC library, and it brought me into it here as a read-only aspect. So I can look at this as a read-only. I can get a visual understanding. I can do of any business process models that are available for a particular business process. I can also do some searching in order to bring up any kind of business processes that are tied to a keyword. I can also export all of these business processes, and I can look at any gaps. So you can come in and view any of these that you wish to. I'm going to click on my back arrow here because I also want to show you by right-clicking on this business process, I'm going to copy it, and I'm now going to copy it into my local library. So I'm going to just rename it, choose OK. And now it's going to be copied into my local library. So now anyone that's invited into my project is going to be able to see my library. Anyone within my organization is not going to be able to see it because it's not a corporate library. Just people within my actual Lifecycle Services project can see this. So now when I click on my library, now I'm going to have some editing capabilities. So you saw that there was a little bit of a difference in what you saw over here because now I see my core views. I can see who the author was and when I can do some editing. I can also look at the implementation views on, am I starting to do a review? Am I starting to do some configuration management on it? So let's go and take a look at the core views of the Business Process Modeler. It is preparing to my index, so it's preparing for me to be available to search. I will tell you that this takes a little bit of time because there's a lot of information here, so be prepared for the index. I've seen this to take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, just so you are prepared for that. Let's start looking at some of the business processes. So I'm going to look at the developing product and services. I'm going to expand this business process. And then I'm going to look for procuring materials and services. So I'm going to click on this. Oops. I shouldn't have clicked on that. What I should have done was expanded that. Sorry. I should have expanded it here and continue to expand it on, let's see, let's do produce a product. And now I can see several actual tasks that are to the level. And some of these tasks have some visual icons in them. And some tasks do not have a visual icon on them. I'm going to purposely click on the one that has a visual icon on it because this means that we as Microsoft have released a flowchart for you. So when I click on Manage Raw Material Inventory, for example. Well, that's not a very good one. That's not very exciting. Let's go back and grab one that is a little bit more exciting. Let's see. All right, perfect. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at a business process on how to create the customer profile. So this particular task is a task that you would perform within AX. It's also a task if you think about the pre-sales process. How do you go about creating your customers? How do you go about doing this in Dynamics AX? Also, when you think about it from a learning perspective, how do you go about teaching your users on how to create a customer in AX? So again, the Business Process Modeler tool allowing you that capability, which is very rich, that can be used in multiple different opportunities throughout your application lifecycle management. So we'll start with the first part of it where you really just want to learn, how do I do this in AX? Well, one thing you can look at is on the right side over here, you can see all of the properties and the click-by-click process step on what you would go through to accomplish this task. So now imagine that you have AX open on another monitor, and you can just simply click on this, and you can go click by click and see exactly what to do in Dynamics AX. You can also scroll all the way down here to the bottom, and it may be a little hard to see, but there's a video playing. You can double click on this video and you can watch the video as far as what you need to do in AX in order to create your customer profile. Now the other piece of this is this Visio-like workflow that walks you through how to create your customer profile. So what we've used within AX is a tool called Task Recorder, and the Task Recorder tool is what generated all of these artifacts for you. So we did not actually walk through and click by click type up each and every one of these steps, and then we didn't use another tool to go and record the video, and then we didn't use another tool which went and created this Visio flow. We used the tool called Task Recorder, which is in the AX product, and it went and automatically created these artifacts for us. Now, I will tell you that there are some limitations to the tool. One of the limitations to the tool is that you can only use the Task Recorder when you are within the AX product. So if you start thinking about maybe retail, for example, and looking how retail capabilities are in the enterprise point of sale, which is an outside of Dynamics AX application, or even if you start thinking about Enterprise Portal as another example, because that's a web portal, those are out of scope for being able to use the Task Recorder tool. So you'll only use it for within the Dynamics AX product. But the value of what we give you here is very, very high. So let's look at the first thing. The first step you're going to do is you're going to open up the list of customers. So if I click on this button on how to open my list of customers, here I get all of the rich metadata that we store in Dynamics AX that is working behind the scenes to get you and generate for you that list of customers. So you can see all of the data sources. If you guys are the techies in the group, you can see what this is. It's a form. You can even see from a perspective of a security and a license key perspective, the type of license that's required in order to be able to open up and view the customers. It may be hard to see on the GoToMeeting, but what I'm doing is clicking on this dark gray area over here, which is, think of it as a swim lane if you're thinking about it from a Visio aspect. When you click on this, what we show you then are all of the out-of-the-box roles that we ship with and the level of control that we ship with in order for that role to have access to perform this function within the swim lane. So this is all 100% out of the box how it works with AX. Now let's move on to thinking about how you might need to do a customization. So let's say that you maybe you want to have in this validation aspect here on creating a new customer, maybe you have a third-party solution that you need to do validation against in order to make sure that you really can create this new customer. Maybe for some reason you're going out and looking at another database somewhere to make sure that this customer has the right level of credit, for example. That way you want to approve them and have them as your own customer. So this is a standard process that we have. We have a validation in here on creating the new customer. It's really a manual validation for you to determine that, yes, you want to create them or not. But if you wanted to create an integration to another tool, what you can do is start pulling in and modifying this Visio. So now I'm going to pull in and say that I actually need to go to a service. And I'm going to rename this and call it my integration service. Obviously, you'll call it anything that makes sense. You can attach the link to the spec that you have, so that way everything is contained here. You could talk about what kind of a fulfillment category in it. I'm saying it's an integration, and I'm saying it's going to take 2 days of effort in order to create this integration. Now, you can obviously make your Visio document pretty, and you can have and add, your links, so that way you can add your hierarchy to say, or a decision tree to say yes, no. You can even click on this and move it if it needs to move to a different swim lane, so that way different roles and responsibilities do this particular aspect. But what you should notice here is what I've done essentially is I've created a gap to this particular analysis and to this particular business process. So now I have a gap to my actual business processes. So I can, if I scroll all the way down here, and all I did was I just right-clicked on this business process, I could save this. So now I have saved that gap to my fit gap list. When I go and look up my gap list, which this is going to come up here, which I can also then export, this gap list is going to show me all of my gaps to my APQC business process. So now we've moved from the stage of talking about how Business Process Modeler really helps you understand how AX works. We moved now into that design phase. So now you're starting to design your solution and call out your fit gaps. And now you could start doing your development work as well too, because from a developer aspect, you even know the metadata as far as what you need to start hooking into. Let's go back here. Now, some of the feedback that we've had, and we know that our customers are in all different phases of really implementing and adopting AX. Some of the feedback that we've had was that, this is a great tool, it's very powerful, but I've actually already modeled all of my business processes outside of this tool. I've got a Visio on what I've done, and now I want to be able to bring that Visio into my Lifecycle Services project, so that way I have everything mapped and I have everything modeled out here down to my APQC business process. And you can do that. All you need to do is click on the Visio icon here, and you can upload your Visio diagram. Now I'm going to tell you and share with you that there's a little bit of maybe funny business happening with this, because it's not true Visio that is being uploaded here. It's what is being uploaded is really actually a screenshot of what your Visio document looks like. So if you needed to make any changes or edits, you're not going to be able to edit them here. You're going to need to edit them in Visio and re-upload them. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you've seen and understand the power of the Business Process Modeler tool. It's extremely powerful. I talked about how you can export any of this data. You can get a list of your gaps at any point in time. Also, I've talked about the search. So remember, this was the index search that's going to take a little bit of time, anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes I have seen it create. You can go out and use the Task Recorder tool to model and create your own business processes, and you can upload your own business processes right here by clicking on this upload button. So when you click on this upload button here, you can name your solution anything you want, and you simply go out and upload the artifact. So you can upload that Task Recorder package, which is going to have your hierarchy that you created in Task Recorder, and it's going to bring in for you all of the videos, the step-by-step, and create the Visio. So if you want to go out and manually create any tasks, maybe you don't need to map to the you can implement part of Dynamics AX and you want to model what that looks like, you have the power to do that and have the power of that to be within your business process library. Okay, let's go back to our project. Actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to switch over here to another LCS project, and I'm going to select a project that I already have open. And let me just go ahead and grab the right one. So bear with me for just a second. This project that I've created is called Validation. This project actually has some demo data that I've already been working with. So I want to scroll all the way again over here to the right, because now I want to move a little bit more into those phases that we talk about that are in your implementation phases. One of the key tools that I feel everyone should use is a system diagnostic tool. So the System Diagnostic tool is a tool that you actually download and you can run on your on-prem environment. Now, when you do come out to System Diagnostics tool, you'll notice here that I got a warning. It is recommended for you to run System Diagnostics locally on a on a recurring basis. One reason is because we are uploading and creating new rules. So you always want to make sure that what your environment is looking at, it is looking at the most current and the most up-to-date rules. The second thing you want to make sure of is that you're making sure that your environment is always healthy. So you want to run this. Now, people have asked what kind of guidance should we give them in terms of how often should they be running it. That really is ultimately up to you. From your production environment, you may want to run it once a week. From your developer environment, maybe you just want to run it once a month. So you guys can determine how often you want to run this. You can set it up as a batch that you run on your Dynamics AX using the batch server, and it will come out here and update all of this information for you. So what we're showing you, though, is that we do let you know that, hey, you're out of date here. You really haven't run this in quite some time. And when you look at the dates, you're going to notice that for this demo, it's been almost over a year since we've run it. So I probably should go out and rerun this again. But it's nice to have that warning message so that way we can have that discussion. The first thing you're going to notice is you have this dashboard. What the dashboard tells you is your overall health of your environment. Now, from an environment perspective, you can run this on multiple different environments. You can run this on your test environments, dev environments, user acceptance testing, your pristine environment or your gold environment, and then on your production environment. So you can run this multiple environments. You select from the drop-down menu here the environment that you want to look at. So I'm going to look at my Contoso CU7 environment. I can see that it's looking pretty healthy. There's really 9 warnings out here. That's not too bad. I can scroll down and see that these are the last 5 messages. And here's the rule telling me that my AX database, the data files have low available space. Well, that's a problem. I don't want to run out of space on my data files. I can also see that fact boxes are enabled. I know because of a lot of data that could be a performance concern for me. So maybe I want to disable some of these fact boxes if I'm thinking about my production environment. And here I've got some incorrect TempDB data files. Well, that's probably not a good thing to have in my production environment either. So this is just telling me some of the rules. Let's actually click on the Messages tab here. And this is where I can see the detail of all of the messages. Now, maybe some of these messages, because of the environment I'm in, I want to just ignore the rule. And that's fine. You can come up here, you can ignore the rule. It's not going to pay any attention until you run diagnostics again. Then it's going to show you that rule. So if you think about this as a working dashboard, and you could say, okay, I took care of this, done, check. I took care of this, done, check. So that way you could just kind of continue as this working dashboard and just keep checking off each of these rules as you adhere to them. Then the next time you run system diagnostics, these rules shouldn't show up for you. We do show you the severity of the rules. So these are just warnings. But if there is anything that we deem as being severe, we will let you know that by showing you a stop sign. So we've got stop signs as being critical, and then we've got warning signs, which are just the yield signs. Now for each of these rules, if you scroll down here, what you're able to see is the condition that we're looking at in the SQL database, the observation that we're making, and then the recommendation on what you should be doing. Now, some of these recommendations may actually come with a blog article or a white paper that you can download and read and look at how do you go about fixing the problem. We also serve up that information for you here in the recommendation. So you'll see the hyperlink then that will allow you to open up and look at the form. look at the information that will provide you the details about how you fix the problem. Some of these we just simply don't have the information. You should know how to add space to your data files to avoid auto growth events. So because we assume you should know that, we didn't apply anything here. If not, you should be able to Bing search that and come up with great articles on TechNet in order to help you with how to do that as well. So that's the concept of the actual system diagnostics. A very powerful tool, provides you with a lot of capability. Now looking at, and obviously let's go and talk about one more topic here, and that's the report. The report concept, we get a lot of feedback on this. If you can see from looking at the view here, my scroll bar is way at the top, which means that I've got a lot of information to scroll through. That's good and bad. We've gotten feedback both ways. Some people give us feedback to say, this is great. I can see everything that you're looking at. I have a good understanding then on what you're actually looking at when you do run the diagnostics. Other people say, wow, this is overkill and I'm never going to look at all this information. Just give me a nice report that tells me everything that I need to go work on. So we get feedback both ways. We're trying to accomplish it by still keeping the report aspect here so you can see everything that we are looking at. But then as we saw this messages dashboard earlier, the messages dashboard then tells you the information as far as what you need to actually go and take advantage of and what you need to go fix. Now the system diagnostics is important, and this is important because it tells us the exact version of the product you're running. So sorry again for the scroll here as we scoot back on over back into the tools. But one other tool we're going to talk about right now is cloud-powered support. So if you are on a support plan where you have the ability to enter a support case directly with Microsoft, you have the option to enter a support case in Lifecycle Services as well, and you can do that by using the tool Cloud-Powered Support. Now the first thing that tool does is it brings up a list of all of your incidents. If I am a Premier customer, or I will see a list of all my Premier customers here, because I'm a non-Premier customer, these are bringing up all the support cases that Microsoft people have actually entered and created. But let's move on into saying that we're going to create a brand new incident. So the first thing you're going to do is at the very bottom of the screen, you're going to click the new incident box. It's a 4-step process to create a new support case. And the first step in that process is what's called issue search. And what issue search does is it allows you the capability to search on our internal database, actually, what Microsoft might know about the problem you're having. Now, I will tell you that you do want to do some smart searching on here because you are going to come back with a ton of results if you don't do some smart searching. So that's why we provide you with the search hints here. But let's start by, I'm just going to say fixed asset depreciation. That was an example I gave earlier. So I'm going to type in the words fixed asset depreciation, and I'm going to have 175 results returned. It's a lot of material to start digging through. So I can also go through this and start working through each of the different statuses to see what do I really want to be looking at. Now let's talk about these statuses and what they mean. An open status, there's 5 open issues. They're coded with red here, but then we can also see here as well that they'll be iconed as red. What an open issue is it is a bug that has already been reported to the Microsoft team that we are going to be fixing. So this comes because we heard feedback from our customers and partners to say, we've spent all of this time troubleshooting this issue, working to try to figure out what the results of the problem were, and then we go to report it to Microsoft support, and here we find out that you guys already knew about it. So why can't you show us the things that you guys are working on? So we use our TFS system internally, and that's what we've done, is we've exposed for you the bugs that we are actively working on that meet your keyword search criteria up here, so that way you have an idea on what we're working on. The resolved issues are showing up here in green. These are actual bugs that we have fixed. Now you'll also notice, I'm going to skip here to workarounds, you're also going to notice that we have will not be fixed. So we're also showing you the issues that have been reported to us that were maybe thought to be a bug, but we're not going to fix them. And you guys know this as well as anyone does. We don't fix 100% of the bugs that are reported to us. Some of them are deemed really low priority bugs that we may fix them, but they may be fixed in a future release, or maybe they will be fixed in a future cumulative update, but we are not going after them and fixing them right away. Now, the other option here, so let's continue on with the status here. The other option here is workarounds. So these are those support cases that are resolved but do not result in a bug. So this is the support team taking a how to type question that we're also exposing out here for you in issue search. So when you think about all of the different sources of data that we're pulling in, it's no wonder that you've got a lot of information to try to work through and try to sort through. Now, I will also admit that we are working on ways to make this search better, because even if you go and say, okay, well, I think I found a bug, that's still 146 items that you need to dig through to see if it's relevant or not, where you might be thinking, geez, it might be quicker for me just to enter the support case. So we are working on ways that we can make this search smarter and faster for you. Now, if I scroll down as well, notice I can also change my search criteria to be saying I only want to search for items that are only on Dynamics AX 2012 R3. Notice you can also search for connector and management reporter. You can also search for items that are tied to particular modules or particular configuration keys. So when you do your search, you can really get down to the level of detail. You can also search for country-specific functionality. So if you're looking for keyword search that might be related only to Canada, you can come out here and you can get into those details of your search criteria in order to really help bring down the amount of data that you're searching on. So the first step is issue search. Now let's take one of these items and let's click on this and let's say, you know what, this one looks kind of similar to what I'm experiencing. So let's click on this and have it come up for us. I must have been talking a little long on that one page, so it's going to take a little bit of time to refresh. But now it comes in and it tells us a little bit more detail. So what was the problem? What was the description of the change? Here I can actually go to download the hotfix. If this seems to be applicable with what I have been experiencing, I can download the hotfix right here. I can also see what objects were affected, and then I can also see what were the dependent objects. So if you think about our hotfix strategy and how we have dependencies, you can have a glance right here to know the number of objects that are going to be in that hotfix, because it's going to contain the affected objects as well as the dependent objects. If I click on this particular class, it's going to bring up for me the class, the method, all of the details, and I'm going to be able to come through here and scroll through to see what actually had changed. Now, we do have an outstanding issue where we're not always showing everything per each method as far as what will change, but what we are striving to do is to be able to show you, and sorry, it's hopping a little bit back and forth there. What we're striving to is for each hotfix to highlight for you the code that was original and the code that was changed. So that way you can see it all here in Lifecycle Services and you don't even have to download the tool. Okay, so let's go all the way back because we're still trying to enter our support case, remember. That's our scenario that we're working on here. Okay, so this should bring us back to issue search, where we can say, all right, I've got a problem. I've identified I have an issue. now I want to go ahead and submit a support case to the Microsoft support team. And I searched through issue search, and that really didn't bring me the results that I was looking for. So as my little donut is spinning up there, let's see if it will come back. If not, I can go to another LCS project, and we can continue on with the demo. So because of my lack of patience, let's go back and okay, we're back on our project again. We're saying new incident, so doing a little bit of repeat. I'll look into why the back button necessarily didn't work for us. We're going to enter our issue on fixed assets depreciation. Choose next. We did not find what we were looking for through issue search, so that's step one. We didn't find anything on what we're looking for, so we're going to go ahead and create our incident. Step two is it's going to say, okay, have you run system diagnostics on the environment, and which environment are you having the problem in? So then I can come out here and choose the particular environment. I am having a problem in this environment. Here's my exact build number on what I am having problems with. So I can go ahead and choose continue. Now I'm on step number 3. And step number 3 is where I can actually start to create the support case. So in step number 3, the first thing is going to be, what is the title of the support case that I want the support engineers to start working on? Am I going to associate this with an account? So I'm going to go ahead and associate this with Microsoft. What is my topic? Well, it is fixed assets, general ledger area. Actually, it's financial management other. And then it's fixed assets. And then I can describe what is my problem. What am I expecting the problem to be? And if I had any symptoms that I wanted to let people know about. Now, I can also say yes or no to these 3 questions. Yes and no to these 3 questions help determine the severity of the issue. And so, is it a potential work stoppage? Am I unable to deploy or ship? If I say yes to all of these, it is going to ring alarms, and it's going to be a severity 1 issue that the support engineers are going to reply to, hopefully, immediately. This is all pretty standard stuff on the left side of the screen. The right side of the screen is where you start to see some of the features and functionality within the Lifecycle Services and cloud-powered support. So the first thing you can do is upload screenshots. So if you've taken screenshots of the business process, you can upload them here. You can add at least 3 files, so that way you could share them right away with the support engineer. The next option that you can do is actually create a virtual machine. So do I want to create a virtual machine, yes or no? So what happens here is when you say yes to create a virtual machine, remember that diagnostics that we ran earlier where we know the exact version of Microsoft AX that you're running? We create a virtual machine for you here that is identical to the version that you have installed. Now, it does not bring over your demo data, or it does not bring over your data, and it does not bring over your configurations. It's using standard demo data, but it's spinning up a virtual machine for you in Azure. So if I say yes here, I can add my telephone number if I want people to call me, and then if I wanted to have people, let's just get a phone number in there. And then if I wanted to have other people emailed on this support case, I can go ahead and add their email addresses here. And as soon as I hit submit, what will happen is within about 30 minutes, I'm going to get an email that says, you have a virtual machine that you can log in. So that virtual machine, again, is going to be an AX virtual machine that is going to have the exact same Microsoft hotfixes installed that you have installed. It has demo data in it, And now you can log into that virtual machine and recreate the issue. So think about the scenario where you feel that you have found a bug in AX 2012. You want to validate that it's a bug, so you want to take out the scenario of your data, and you also want to take out the scenario of any maybe customizations, or if you have any third-party code installed, you want to take that out of the realm too. So if you look at that and take those out of the equation, then what's going to happen is now you're going to have an environment that is pretty much pristine, that you can change your configurations in if you want to. You can add, create new customers, create new vendors, whatever you need to do in, and replicate the problem. As soon as you can replicate that issue, you can share that with the support engineer. And when you share that with the support engineer now has a virtual machine that's in Azure that they can log in and see exactly what your problem is. Now the two of you are troubleshooting off the exact same environment. The purpose and the business reason why we went after this is because we've identified so many back and forth conversations that take place, so many days that were just wasted, maybe so to speak, and to be so blunt, on trying to resolve an issue because the support engineer didn't get exactly what the requirements were that you were having. You weren't exactly able to recreate the issue. Now we're giving you an environment that you can, and there is no cost to you to do this. So as long as you have a support case, as long as your partner has a support case, that they can create a support incident with Microsoft, there is no cost for you to use these virtual machines to be troubleshooting your issues in. So that is cloud-powered support, one of the other services and tools that we have available. I'm going to go back to my Lifecycle Services project, and I am going to go back to a training project that I have available, because this project, again, has demo data set up on it that I want to start talking about in terms of environments. So the next tools that we're going to talk about are all about your environment and how to make sure Lifecycle Services can help you set up the best environment that's appropriate for your deployment. We talked about the Business Process Modeler tool. Business Process Modeler is really about how are you going to be using AX. You know, it's more about what are you going to be using in AX. You know, you're going to be using these business processes. Let's take a look at the next tool, which is the Usage Profiler tool, which goes deeper into the details about how are you going to be using Dynamics AX. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to import your Business Process Modeler into the Usage Profiler. And remember, you can have multiple business process models out there. I chose just the standard one when I did an import, so then it brought for me and shows me that, oh, you're going to use all these modules. So I've also gone through and said, I'm going to start with the fixed asset module, and I'm going to start walking through and say, how many concurrent connected fixed asset users am I going to have? How many total fixed assets am I going to have? How often am I going to depreciate my fixed assets? So now you're getting into that interview type question within every single module that you're going to be using in AX. So you're going to go through Usage Profiler and you're going to fill in all of this information. You're going to talk about your deployment details. So let's go to deployment details. Is this deployment going to be a hosted environment, yes or no? Is this going to be a virtualized environment? What about my organization structure? Am I going to have multiple organizations? If so, then how many legal entities? So these questions, if you answer yes, no, will also pop out multiple questions. Now, I'm also saying here that I'm going to have 1,700 concurrent users throughout this particular environment. As you know, you go through here, you enter in any complex reports you're going to have, any operating sites that you're going to have, any ISV products, customizations, integrations. You really are building up your story for how are you going to be using AX. Now, out of this, you can do a summary, and the summary is a report. And the summary report tells me that, hey, you actually are going to be using 1,700 users. We've only ever done estimates for up to 1,400. So you've exceeded the maximum estimate size on what we have actually done by providing you some sizing capabilities on. So we're giving you the warning, we're telling you it here, so that way you guys have an understanding on what we've done from an infrastructure sizing and from a benchmark sizing, so you know our limits. When you go through and do all of this information as well, I showed you what the user interface looks like in LCS. You also can download all of this into Excel and re-upload the templates. Now, once you've gone through and you've created the usage profiler, how the usage profiler is really used to help you determine the deployment topology that is best going to be suited for your environment. So that is going to be this infrastructure estimator tool. When I look at the infrastructure estimator tool, I can see that I have done several infrastructure estimators before already. And in looking at these, all of my infrastructures I have based on cloud deployments. If I click to do a new estimate, it is going to estimate for me what type of environment that I want. So if I'm going to do a production environment, I can name my production environment whatever I want, and then I can choose if it's going to be an on-premise or a cloud environment. So I'm going to say on-prem. I'll just call it on-prem 1, and I'm going to say it's an on-prem environment. And if I go to choose create, it's going to pop up an error message for me because I can't accurately size an environment for you because you're going to be using 1,700 users, and I only have ever sized up to 1,400. So in order to do proper sizing, if what you are trying to size is outside what we have ever done before, we're going to let you know. Now, with that being said, I have gone through and I have done several other sizings out here. So let's look at this production 4 sizing environment. This was a particular cloud environment. It was using my usage profiler, and it is telling me how many AOSs do I need, how many enterprise portal AOSs do I need, how many enterprise portals itself do I need, how many help servers. All of this information is telling me the size and also the amount of RAM that I need. And it's giving me the estimate of my domain controller as I start thinking about my cloud experience. Now, it's going to provide you the same type of topology overview if you're doing an on-prem, but let's start and shift into thinking about how to use this for a cloud deployment. I can even go here onto the Azure pricing details. This will take me right to Azure. So now I'll be able to price out to get a good understanding of how many A4s, how many A7s do I need, and what is that going to look like from my monthly cost in Azure. So everything is controlled for you right within LCS. Let's go back to our training project, and let's scroll all the way over here to the right. And now, so let's recap what we've done so far. We have identified that we're going to need an environment. We've used Business Process Modeler to say what are we going to be using in Dynamics AX. We've identified Usage Profiler as the tool to say how are we going to be using Dynamics AX, to what level, to what detail, how many users. We've used the Infrastructure Estimator tool to say, okay, tell me what my environment is going to look like. And let's just say I'm going to use an Azure environment. So now I have an idea of what I need from a topology standpoint in Azure. Now the next tool is going to say, okay, let's deploy that environment into Azure. And so that is cloud-hosted environments. So if I click on cloud-hosted environments, now I have the ability to see all of my environments for Dynamics AX that I have available. And then I can also choose my little plus icon up here. And now I could choose the type of environment that I want to deploy. So I can deploy a demo environment into Azure, a developer or test environment, or a high availability environment if I want to run my R3 production environment in Azure. Now, the first thing that you guys will see when you go to do this, if you haven't done it already, is you do need to import your Azure subscription. So these topologies you are going to be paying for. So the first step that I went through is I actually put in my Azure subscription, my MSDN Azure subscription. I'm going to say I want to do a demo environment. I have several different demo environments I could choose from here. I could do an R3 demo environment. I could do Retail Essentials, maybe an R3 not CU8 environment. I could pick any of these I want. And then I can name this what I want. So I'll say demo environment 1.1. I can change the size of the demo environment I want. It's going to automatically default for me now to a D4. I could choose any other size I want. Obviously, the size of this environment, this size, the D4, D3, D2, this equates to the size of the virtual machine that is going to be deployed in Azure. Now, when you deploy this VM, it's going to use Azure cores that are on your Azure subscription. And so that is how you are, so quote-unquote, paying for this, so to speak. And there's all kinds of information out here. I'm not going to go into those gory details, but there's all kinds of information over here when you go to look at the Azure price list. So you can change the size here as well, too. There are also advanced settings. So I can specify a name here for my demo VM, so I can customize my machine name. When you start thinking about some of the other options, and let's actually cancel. Let's go back and do a high availability environment just to show you. I'm not actually going to kick one off, but let's take a look at some of the functionality behind the high availability and how you'll get a good understanding on all the different deployments. So I can name this, what I want. Again, here's all my instances. So I, by default, am always going to have 2 database servers. It's a high availability environment, which means I'm going to have the redundancy. So I'm going to have a failover for my database server. So I have a minimum of 2 database servers that I'm going to have. I could change the size of those database servers based on my usage profiler. I can come out here and change the number of instances. Maybe my usage profiler said that I really need 10 AOS servers, and I should change the size of them to be A7s. So you guys get the hint here. You get the point of what you can do to be changing to making sure that your environment is going to perform for you how you need it to for Azure and when you start running your environment in Azure. Now, there are several advanced settings that we've added. You can customize your domain. So everything can go onto the contoso.com domain, which I doubt you probably want to run your production environment on contoso.com. You probably want to go to an existing domain, which would be probably your company, your organization domain. So here's how you can make those customizations and changes. You can also customize the service accounts. So these are the default service accounts that you need to have set up in order to make sure that your environment is running properly. You need to have your Business Connector proxy user. Here you can specify the username and the password. You can make these changes. You'll see the supported version that we have. We are going to deploy for you R3 CU8, or you can do RTM. If you wanted to, when we have a CU9 environment available, you could choose that from the list and deploy that as well. So you guys get the point here, I'm sure, as far as each of the opportunities that you have on what you can be customizing. All of this can be done within Lifecycle Services. Now then, as soon as you've gone through, you customized everything, you've clicked this box and you choose next, we start spinning up those environments for you. So you're going to end up with, let's just cancel this here, you're going to end up with, when you click on an environment, it's going to show you that it is deployed here where I have stopped highlighted. It's going to show you it's deployed. And you're going to end up over here with all of the details about your deployment in Azure. The beauty of Lifecycle Services with this as well is that you can actually manage the deployment in Lifecycle Services by doing the start and the pause button right here. So if I want to spin up this environment to start it up so that way I could start logging in and start playing around with this demo environment, I could just choose Start right here, and that's going to spin up everything for me in Azure. Now, once this is live and it's up and it's awake for me in Azure, if I'm done with it and I don't want to use it anymore and I don't want to be charged for it, this play button here actually becomes a pause button, and that's what I click in order to make sure that I'm no longer charged for AX in Azure. So I want to make sure that we do have time for Q&A. I also want to give you guys just a little bit of preview because I think it's pretty fun and I think it's very exciting about the next version of AX and what it's going to look like. So we have already shared with you Lifecycle Services. Now, I did not go through every single tile. We could probably spend a full day going through every single tile. What I did go through, though, are the primary tiles that I feel all of our customers should be using. Let's maybe just talk just a couple more seconds on a couple of these tiles. One tile here is the update tile. If you are on AX 2012 R3 and you want to be able to download CU8, this is where you go. So you go out here and you download the update installer. So this will allow you then to install Dynamics AX 2012 CU8. Here's where you could do the CU8 slipstream experience if you want to slipstream it. You're also going to see out here when CU9 becomes available, which we're looking at that being about May, June timeframe. When CU9 becomes available, you'll be able to see that out here as well too. Okay, so I know this is taking a little bit of a risk here because I'm getting things warmed up, but let's close out of these browsers. Let's go to this in private session here. I'm going to close out of this one, and I'm going to go to lcs.dynamics.com, and I'm going to actually use an Active Directory login, and so I'm going to log in here. Boy, I am struggling with typing today. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got this little thing coming out called AX7, and so I just want to show you some of the capabilities of what we're doing with Lifecycle Services in AX7. So today with AX 2012 R3, I've already showed you a lot about how AX really comes into play in Lifecycle Services and how that story comes, it all really becomes one. Well, it becomes very much the story for AX7. So AX7 is our next release of the product. If any of you Convergence, you maybe had an opportunity to go and sit in on the main stage. I think it was called the Strategy and Roadmap session, done by Christian Pedersen, Sri Srinivasan, and Dan Brown, where they walked through and showed you a demo of what AX7 looks like. I just want to spend a little bit of time showing you how we are using Lifecycle Services with AX7, and then I'll give you a quick little sneak preview on the product because I think it looks pretty amazing. If everything is up and going, like I said, we're taking a little risk here. I'm doing everything off the cuff, but we'll make sure and everything looks good. Okay, so AX7. Obviously, when we scroll all the way over, notice there's a few tools here that are available. So our Business Process Modeler tool, we talked about that with you guys. You guys saw the rich functionality on that on AX 2012 R3. We are building out that rich functionality to make sure it's applicable for AX7 as well. And we are also going to be bringing out all of those tools from AX 2012 R3 and making them all applicable for AX7 as well. We also looked at the methodology, and I showed you guys the Surestep methodology that's available for everyone today on R3. I also talked to you about how you can be creative internally with creating your own methodology. And so I want to show you how we were creative, I think, with using a methodology for AX7. So the Fastpath team in the room has been on the journey with us to make sure that their solution is ready for AX7. And so we've been working very closely with them, as well as a variety of other organizations as well, too. And so one of the tools that we created and provided for them was the ability to learn about AX7. And we're going to continue to build on this and make this available for everyone once the product becomes generally available. But we've used the methodology concept, and we've said, here are the 9 steps on what you need to learn to understand Dynamics AX7. Obviously, navigating AX7 is really big, and it's all brand new because it's a brand new interface. So how to learn about the basics? Here's the tasks on what you need to do, and here's the resources to help you get there. So we've used the document, and we've also linked to online videos that can help you get from 0 to 100% knowledge on AX7. So this is just another creative way on how you guys can take a framework of what we've provided you with Lifecycle Services and how you can use that framework internally to the best of your needs. You can use it as a readiness platform. I'm hearing of other organizations actually adopting that as an option as well, too. So when they look at it from a readiness perspective for all their employees, they are adopting and creating their own methodology that allows them then the ability to have environments up and running. That way they can deploy environments into Azure so they could take a look at the environment, but then they also have all of their readiness and training material available as well, too. So I talked about, or we've looked at the ability to actually deploy AX. So in the environments option, and let's just go back there. Sorry, I need my little scroll guy to come back on the bottom. In the environments, when I click on this plus sign, I am going to bring my Azure subscription. And so I brought my Azure subscription, and I already entered my Azure subscription, and I chose Azure. Then I could choose what type of environment do I want to deploy. I chose to deploy a demo environment. And here I have 2 environments. I have one that's deployed and one that's stopped. So if I click on environment 2, which was the environment that is deployed, I can see that if I want to stop this environment so I am not being charged, here is where my pause button is. So I can stop this. This means that I will not be incurred any charges from Azure. I can also now log into AX7. And so by doing that, I clicked on this button right here to say log in to Dynamics AX7. And now this is a early prototype, and I'll even tell you that it's changed since then, but what the AX7 client looks like. So let's just spend a couple minutes and take a look at this, just so you guys get a look and feel on what the new user experience will be for AX7. Dynamics AX7 is obviously our next release. It's going to be coming out later part of this calendar year is when it will be made generally available. I am accepting nominations for customers that want to be on the TAP program. So if you guys see this, you fall in love with it, hey, you want to take it and deploy it, let me know. I'm sure Trish will send to everyone my email address so you guys can just obviously reach out to me for any questions that you have on Lifecycle Services in general or any questions on something in the future and how to engage with us. But you'll have that opportunity as well. So let's just take a quick look. We're not going to spend a bunch of time here, but let's look at some of the navigation. So it's just getting warmed up because it just got started right before I deployed it. But this is what we call the hamburger. So I'm going to go take a look at my accounts payable. I'm going to look at my common. I'm going to go to vendors, and I'm going to go to all vendors. Now, if you guys are AX 2012 users or R3 users, this navigation should sound familiar to you. Because from a navigation standpoint and from a functionality standpoint, there's not much that has changed. The thing to note is that with AX7, it's all up here in HTML5. So I'm using a web browser to get access to AX7. I am not deploying a rich client that's available from my desktop. I actually just launched AX7 through the browser. Let's go and change my company. I can see right now I'm in the DAT company, which I know doesn't have demo data in it. So let's go and change to a company that I know has some demo data, and that is USMF. So when I change to my USMF environment, that's going to open for me all my vendors. So now I'm in all my vendors for my USMF company. I can see all of my vendors here. My user experience has changed to be a little bit more like Office 365 because I could see it from my activities at the top here, how I need to go about creating a new vendor. If I'm on a vendor and I need to take an action, I can click on the Vendor tab up here, and here's where I can go to see all the different actions I can do for that particular vendor. If I wanted to go to invoicing this vendor, I could click on Invoice. Here's all the different actions I could perform as it relates to invoicing that vendor. Notice we still have the fact boxes over here that appear on the right. If I take a look at a particular vendor and I just drill into it and drill into the details, here I can see all the fast tabs. So you guys, if you're on 2012, you're used to this look and feel. If I go to create a brand new vendor, and I could create a new one here, I can notice that my required fields are highlighted. They are also done in red, and they have an asterisk for me to let me know the visual cue that, hey, I need to go make some changes here. And then from a filter perspective, I could just on the left-hand side here, click on what I want to filter on, and it's going to bring over my filter screen. So now I can add filters, apply filters, do anything I want right here within my filter aspect, all very handy within this one form. Let's go back to, let me go ahead and hide my filters. Let's just delete this record. I really didn't do much with it. Let's go back to all of my vendors, and I could do that by closing this form up here in the upper right. And what I have the capability to do, and this is coming in a future version, you can see it's here because it's in this little screen, but you do have the capability to open up another window, which will be another URL and another browser. So you don't necessarily need to do everything all in one browser. You'll be able to click on a record and actually click on this little guy up here that says open a new window, and you'll be able to do side by side. You'll be able to take that even and move it over to another monitor as well if you're working on dual monitors. If I look at my little flag message, this tells me if there's any messages. So remember, you guys are probably used to, if you're aware of 2012, you'd have a lot of messages that would come up and just always be on top of what you were doing and warning you, which required you to use the mouse to click on it to go away. Now you'll have a lot of those warning messages up here in the flag. Let's take just a quick look from a personalization perspective as I could go up here to my options. And when I look at my options, I could do some personalization. So I could change the color of my AX product. Here I can also see how much content is being displayed. So I could see a lot of content here in big tiles, or I could change my display to be a little bit different in smaller tiles. This is all to help with the type of device that you're using. If you think about the mobility aspect of AX7, the web aspect, the ability of it to be anywhere, you have the capability also here within your personalization as well too. At any time, I could just click on Dynamics AX, and it's going to bring me back to my home screen where I have the capability to see everything. Now, I'm logged in as the administrator, so naturally I see all of this information. But think about this as popping up as being workspaces for you. So if you are a particular role, if you are the controller role, you will have a workspace that will come up that will have tiles that will be interactive to help you do your job more efficiently and to do your job better. This is actually something that the workspace concept that we're working on for one of our next technical preview versions that is coming out. So I know that's just a little teaser and kind of a high-level overview, but just wanted to give you guys some of the new fun experience as well, too, that we have with AX, and also to really just hit home for you and to see the integrated experience that Lifecycle Services is going to have as we think about the future of the product, as we think about Dynamics AX7. You already saw earlier today the integration experience that we have with R3, how all of those tools work and how they all get applied into your R3 environment. With AX7, it just even becomes more and more seamless. So with that, I want to leave some time for questions that you guys may have. I am monitoring, and I believe we've got a few people available as well to help monitor. So if there's anything that you guys have, please feel free to raise your hand, or you could type it in the questions area of the link. And it looks like there's a couple here. I see one. Can customer data and customizations be uploaded to the cloud-hosted environments? No, it cannot today. And we are working on that. The primary reason why we do not have you upload your customizations into this environment yet is really all because of privacy. If you do needed to upload your customizations, or you did need to upload your data to the Microsoft support team, we have very secure channels for you to do that, because we take your privacy and we take your data and the privacy of your data to the extreme, obviously. We are working on the privacy plans to make sure that you can eventually take a copy of your environment and share that into Azure. But today, because of the cloud-hosted environments and because of all the people that would actually have access to that, we want to make sure that we really protect that. So we're still working on making sure the best protection of your data. So we still ask that if you do need to go that route today, that either you spin up a VM in your Azure subscription and then you only invite key people into that we know are controlled, or you do take a backup of your data and you do send it into the support team for them to restore locally in the controlled lab in order to look at that. So we're working on options in the future. Great question, though. And also, feel free, I think you guys can unmute yourself too, right?
I can certainly unmute whoever has a question. I think Chris had a follow-up to that original question there, Shelley.
Oh, shoot, I think I'm missing it. Do you have it handy? Are you able, I'm not able to see it.
Let's see, he said, sorry, not specifically for the support VM, the non-production environments or high availability environments.
Ah, perfect. Now I see it. It just came up for me. Yes, you can. So if you think about the cloud-hosted environment aspect, that's the part where you bring in your Azure subscription and you are deploying your AX environment to your Azure subscription. Yes, that you will take. It is all done as infrastructure as a service. So you have full access to that data. You can, what I've had customers do is actually do an on-prem upgrade. So they upgraded their solution from 2009 to R3. They've taken that R3 SQL backup and they've restored it into Azure in a high availability environment, or even in a dev or test environment, and then they've used that, and that's what they've gone with, and that's what they've run with. Now, if you want to grant anyone access to that, it's just setting up and using your standard Active Directory that you would use. You'd probably use your on-prem Active Directory, set up your VPN to Azure so that way they talk to each other, and then everyone will have access to log in to that environment. You have complete access to customize that environment because it is infrastructure as a service, and it is your data because it's under your Azure subscription. Hopefully that answered the question, Chris.
It looked like it did. Sam had a question as well. Do you see Sam's question there?
Not yet. It must take just a little. Okay, perfect. Now I see it. Okay, let's go up to it here. On my Lifecycle Services screen, I have only 4 tiles. You have also had one for infrastructure. How do you add more tiles? You know what, Sam, actually, we've had a couple people report this issue, and I've just started to see reports of the issue starting yesterday. So we are investigating why some people are not seeing all tiles. One thing that we are looking at is that we have recently released and did some changes, unfortunately, to the roles that are in. So let me go out of here, and I'm actually going to go back into standard LCS, so that way it's the same experience of what you guys see. I'm going to go in as my Microsoft employee. One thing that I would ask you, Sam, if you could check is in your roles, if you click on this drop down over here, are you an admin to what you see here as well? Then my other question is going to be for you on your actual project, because you're only able to see in the tool section here 4 tiles. You should be able to see all of these. If you look at the project users tile over here, if you have that, let's assume you have project users. If you have project users, you should be able to see the role, and all project owners should be able to see the role. Maybe, Sam, if you don't mind, take a screenshot. If you can see project users, take a screenshot of that and send that over to me and let me know. Also, I'd like a screenshot where if you click on your name up here, just take a screenshot of this information, because it's going to tell me your organization. It's also going to tell me the type of access you have within your organization. We have seen reports of this, like I said, just reported yesterday. I started to see them come in, so we're still investigating what it is. I don't have the answer yet, but I'll follow up with you, Sam, and make sure you get that.
Okay, I know that Marcy had the next question there, I think. Do you see that one, Shelley?
Yeah. So we use LCS. Will this new version create a topology diagram for our on-prem environments that we're collecting data on? Yes, it will. So as long as you have used, it's that multi-step process. You need to have your business processes modeled in Business Process Modeler. You need to use Usage Profiler to say how many users, how many fixed assets, how many sales order lines. Then you can use the infrastructure estimator to get an on-prem or a cloud deployment topology and what it should look like. So it's not just as simple as just saying, okay, one click and away I go. It is a phased process, and all of those tools do rely on each other. Now, the good news is that you don't have to wait until you're 100% complete with all of them, because you can start with your business process modeler. You could start to model it, and then you could say, yep, now I'm going to go into Usage Profiler and grab this business process modeler. You saw in my Usage Profiler that I wasn't complete. I still had in my Usage Profiler here, let's go to that. I still had several areas. This one was not even started. I'm in a different project, sorry. But I had several areas that weren't even started, but I can mark it as complete. And if I want to mark it as complete, then I can do an infrastructure estimator based on my Usage Profiler. So it is those 3 steps that you do have to go through.
All right, I think there are just
any other?
I think there are a couple more here. Tony had a question regarding the System Diagnostic Collector.
Yeah, so let's go back to a tool that I have. Actually, it might be good to actually just show you on this tool what it looks like first. So let's go back, sorry. Changing my mind here on the fly, and I know it's a little bit of a catch-up for you guys. Okay, so let's assume that everything is working perfectly for you and you guys have access to all tiles. And I think I saw there where Sam did say that he was the admin. So Sam, if maybe you can just shoot me an email afterwards and we can work offline, or if there's other people as well too, let me know and I'll definitely work with you to make sure we troubleshoot to get to the bottom of what's going on. you should have access to the System Diagnostic tool. When you click on the System Diagnostic tool, the first thing you're going to do is download the installer. So you're actually going to take the install package. It's an executable package that you are going to download on your AOS. And then you just run the executable package on your AOS. As soon as, and then you can run that executable anytime. And you run the executable on the AOS. Now, when you do the download here and you install the package on the AOS server, you're going to need to upload a certificate to Lifecycle Services. That's the handshake. So that's the handshake to say that here's my environment, here's my on-prem environment, here's my diagnostic collector on the AOS that has a certificate that's going to point to this project in Lifecycle Services. So that way, when you collect the data, it's going to use that certificate, and that information then is going to become available here on the dashboard, the messages, and the environments that you're going to see in LCS. So the first experience for you is going to be to download the installer, get everything set up, run the setup executable. Then as soon as you kick off the executable to collect the data, and you have your certificate uploaded, then it's going to appear for you up here in Lifecycle Services. Now, there is a TechNet article that walks through all of this in detail, and it goes through all the detail to tell you what type of user you need to be to log in as to make sure that you can run the download and the installer. So that TechNet article, if you just go out to TechNet, you type in AX, Lifecycle Services, System Diagnostics, it's going to come up for you and tell you step by step what you need to do.
All right. I think there was one final question from Chris regarding AX7 and
AX7?
Yep, multiple
Perfect.
linked browsers.
All right. Is the ability in AX7 to have multiple linked browser sessions available at launch or planned for a later release of AX7? It's planned for at launch. We do have areas that we are working on right now that are working. And the environment that I showed you, so we are on this milestone of several different technical previews. And the technical preview that I showed you is one that came out at the end of March. The environment that we're working on next that we will have in our technical preview will have the multi-browser and the multi-ability supported in it. So that way you will be able to have two browsers up and available. So it's called the Dynalinks capability if you're used to that from R3. So we're working to get that available, and we're working to have that available at launch.
All right, Shelley, I think that's all of the questions that we see out there.
All right. So I guess just to kind of finalize on things, one, obviously I know a couple of you guys are having problems with LCS. Send me an email. If you guys could please share my email address, and I think you guys probably do all have it, but share my email address with everyone on the call. If you guys have issues, send me a question. I'm happy to help you out. The other thing would be if AX7, you liked what you saw, you want to be a TAP customer, you want to go live with it, let me know. Like I said, we're working very closely with Fastpath, so we know they're going to be ready to go when the AX7 product is ready. So we know that they'll be there to meet your needs as well. So thank you. I want to make sure you guys, we've spent almost a good 2 hours on Lifecycle Services itself, and I appreciate the great questions. If you guys have any other questions in the future, don't hesitate to ask. And thanks to the Fastpath team as well for the opportunity to get to speak with you guys today.
Absolutely, Shelley. Thank you so much for your time today and all the great information. We appreciate everyone showing up today, and thank you very much for your time. We'll wrap things up. Thanks, everyone.